Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm Jen, and welcome to another episode of the Banter Alpha Hour. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for all of our listeners. We've got a full hour dedicated to kind of just sharing alpha, talking about what's been going on in the crypto space the last week. We've got Patrick, who is the creator of Dynamo DeFi, the YouTube and newsletter. Ceazor, creator of Ceazor Snack Sandwiches YouTube, educational videos on YouTube. Brad Nickel, host of Mission DeFi podcast. Paper Street Capital is the writer of the Substack Not Smart, Just Interested, investor in both TradFi and Web3. Dr. Mark Richardson is the project lead at Bancor and Carbon DeFi, and Tyler, trader and DeFi farmer. Thank you guys all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here.
Happy to
Thank
have
you,
you
Jen.
and make it last week. We kind of spoke to what was going on with Curve a good amount of the time, which, by the way, have you guys heard the latest on what's been happening with that?
I caught some tweets yesterday about something about the hacker returning funds, and I haven't had any time today to dive into it and see what the story was.
I saw that also, and then I saw that they reached their kind of ultimatum deadline of return the funds or we're putting out like the public bounty. I think that was the last I heard, but I don't know about the CRV loans and things from any of the lending protocols.
I'm
Patrick,
trying to I'm trying to check now and see if I can see anything.
nice. Patrick, I know you wrote about it a little bit in your latest
Mhm.
newsletter.
Yeah, my best understanding is that most of the danger has passed, but truthfully, I've been traveling for a couple of days, so I'm still getting back updated on everything.
Nice. That was kind of Caesar's situation last week. Caesar, are you still traveling this week also, or have you been able to kind of get back to where you wanted to be to handle that appropriately if you needed to?
Yeah, I'm still traveling. I'm not going to be back for a little while actually. Um, yeah, so I kind of spun up a laptop and did a couple things, but not like I said. I'm not in a dangerous position. It's more about just understanding what's going on and trying to keep up with it. The things that I saw recently was Peck Shield kind of tweeted about the idea that maybe I didn't dig deep. I just saw like a glance tweet, right? Where the exploiter sent money back to Alchemix in both form of ETH and Alchemix ETH. So I'm not sure, I don't know exactly if that happened but it's they did tweet about it and it's just pretty straightforward. This was sent to there. So
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
looks like Alchemix funds are back. I'm trying to see if anything else, but I love Alchemix, one of my favorite projects. So glad to see that.
And then I saw a few of the devs, like the White Hats, Banteg and stuff, uh, doing doing like sweeps of like Viper contracts out there that might have exposure, or like they just built a script to just like sweep everything and spit out like who's still exposed because of the Viper problem. And so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Also, go fast and pin it to the top because I saw that as well. And if I'm not mistaken, was it like 50 something?
Well, there's a lot, right? There's a lot of curve forks, right? So I assume they a lot of them just fork it. They probably they do their I hope they do their due diligence, but they kind of assume it's fine, right? Because it's curve, right?
It's
So
unfortunate because that Viper, the whatever vulnerability was in the Viper compiler was flagged like years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, which is even more depressing. Like I wonder if somebody should be building something like a infrastructure for better, like I don't know, reporting these things so other devs might know in the future. But it seems like a pretty big loss for the space for something that could have easily been prevented.
well, I've talked in the past about like the competition of like security auditors and flagging of like suspicious activity and stuff like that. Like there's an open market, so there's that's a good thing, right? Because then you get innovation and competition and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's pretty hard for a dev to know keep up with all of the possible security issues that are out and about. So it's you know what I mean. It's pretty hard. So I was always thinking about like, yeah, how could we put something together that is like a go-to all, one single place where you get it all, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. Like kind of like what Link 3 is doing with like crypto events. Like I've always said for years, like it's so hard to just get a brief like overview of like what's happening in the industry. And I wonder if we could do the same thing with like security issues and stuff like that too.
Um, I posted something to the top. I didn't see Bantegs, but I know that he or they reposted this. So I threw it up there so we can kind of take a look if anybody was interested in seeing that. Speaking of what's going on in the industry, did you guys see that PayPal launched a stable coin?
Yeah, that's pretty huge. I was just looking at that. That's pretty amazing. PYUSD stablecoin. In terms of kind of all the news that was happening yesterday with Adam Cochran talking about Huobi not having enough USDT to, I think, having like 10% of the USDT they were supposed to have in the exchange, and other news going on around USDT. I find this really an interesting move by PayPal, and from a regulatory perspective, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But from the perspective of a company that's got the assets to back it, I think this is a really good sign for the market and good sign for them as well.
I've been in meetings all day, Brad. Did they say like what chain their stable would be on, or is it
Ethereum.
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 wow? Yeah, that is
Yeah.
huge. Okay.
It's Paxos. Paxos is issuing it, so
Gotcha.
they've got all the infrastructure already,
Right.
right? So I guess you just slap your branding on it. I don't know how it works over at Paxos, but yeah, this is pretty big news.
Yeah. So what's their end game? They just want to collect massive fees.
Well, I would assume so, but the CEO is saying, we really want this to become a critical part of the DeFi infrastructure. And I would assume they also can make, if you start thinking about if you're integrated in the payment system like PayPal is, and you've got Venmo as well, you can start really thinking about these ideas of being an institutional backbone for transfers. You can utilize it in DeFi. You can utilize it obviously with eBay and online stores. I mean, think about all the millions of businesses that there's 350 million users of PayPal. So if you think about all of the businesses that use it and take it, this now opens the door for every single one of them to start taking this stablecoin, which then opens the door to wallets and opens the door to DeFi interaction and integrations that could be happening on the back end with PayPal for DeFi protocols, lending, etc. To me, this is a really significant move.
I wonder when PP coin for bribes on Curve.
Yeah, I mean it's the first. They called it the first stablecoin by a leading financial institution, and that also I think it makes it really interesting for Gensler and the SEC and everybody else, because now you know that PayPal is going to have this backed, and you know that the funds will be there, and now that's a real tight integration into our existing payment system. So I think that's really big news.
Did you read this on the Bloomberg article? Because it's paywalled. I don't pay for Bloomberg, so I'm wondering if there's anything like where did you
Telegraph has it on the homepage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I'll take a look.
Right?
Yeah.
Looking at the terms and conditions, because I could pin those too if we really want to get into the fine print.
Yes, a couple of thoughts I wanted to add on this. So one thing that's interesting is, I mean, not really interesting, but some more details are the coin's going to be backed by cash, U.S. Treasuries, and cash equivalents. And my theory on part of the reason why they're doing this is if you just look at how much money Tether is making, last quarter, Tether generated over $1 billion in operating profit. And so I'm sure that PayPal is looking at those numbers and doing the math on, if they can get even a fraction of the amount that fraction of stablecoin users that Tether's using, and I think if they're successful, probably they could get as many. That's a lot of profit, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of upside for them. And the other thing that's interesting is I think this was an announcement, this was an announcement as well, is that they're going to be also making the coin accessible on Venmo.
Nice. Yeah, I really like this, and I really like the piece of. I really hope they push this hard with online commerce businesses that are accepting PayPal, because that's kind of the default first thing that everybody does before they get a Stripe account or some other merchant account, is they start taking credit cards with PayPal, and that's a that could be a huge boon across the board for people kind of accepting the idea of digital money and stable coins.
Do you guys know if PayPal's like all over Europe, like deeply ingrained? Like I know it's in America, I know it's in Canada, and like because like I was in Taiwan for a while, and it was just like it was nobody used it. It was just not like the only people who used it were international people. So I'm wondering, like in Europe, is it well ingrained?
I don't know if it is, but the coin they've said will only be available to U.S. users, at least at the start, whether it's
Okay.
great or not.
That's
No, I'm just
interesting.
talking about PayPal in general.
I
Like,
up from people in the audience. I see Karama. Let me see. Karamata? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I see you throwing your thumb up. So I'm thinking that it is elsewhere other than just the US.
There's a side of this too of I'm listening to everybody and kind of slowly keeping up with the PayPal thing. It's going to be interesting how the credit card companies react. If you think of, I'm just thinking in terms of PayPal's core business. Um, I really need to read more into this, but that was my first thought of like, you when you start to encroach on that, like what's going to be their reaction, and also like what do they do if it starts to hurt their business? Um, so it's going to be interesting. Is it's there's going to be you're going to bother some people with this, even though we love it. There's some like very ingrained businesses that rely on this not working. So that was my first thought was just the credit card companies.
Yeah, I don't know how much penetration they have in other countries, but they have, they're accepted and used in 200 countries and support 25 currencies, but I have no idea what kind of market presence they have in those countries.
That's still a huge number though. I mean, that's a big user. I mean, we can't say user base necessarily, right? But that's a lot of exposure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes to show how long some of these things take too, because like Venmo and PayPal, like I've been buying, like anytime I get payments or anything, I just kind of shove it into Bitcoin and Ethereum on my PayPal and Venmo app. So I wonder how long it took them to actually get this set up, because I'm sure like with this reputable of an institution, I'm sure it took probably years to get something like this set up. And hopefully it streamlines like other money transmitters to do the same.
Yeah, let's hope. That would be awesome.
I hope they take into account like the requirement a lot of us have for transparency and just like like they don't go the way of the old tether where it was nobody knew anything about what was going behind the door, right? So I hope they do kind of show a lot more, and it's not like I get it, like it can be hidden behind the UX, so most people don't see things, but the people who want to know can dig and see what everything that's happening, instead of it's all just happening inside some server.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
think Patrick's point about the business here is holding the spread between, holding, say, treasuries versus, you know, offering the service of the stablecoin, like that, that is just producing billions for Tether and maybe on a smaller scale for other players. And so it's no mystery why they're trying to get in and why more people probably will enter into the space. So it's all moving in the right direction. It's just gonna be probably a little. It might get a little crowded, which is fine. Is it if maybe go to different chains and all this. Um, but it's definitely a first step of probably many.
Well,
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
oh, go ahead, Brad.
No, I'm just agreeing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we've spoken to more DeFi protocols and things, more products leaning more towards this business model, right? I mean, they see it and they're moving in on that. So I would hope that we see more protocols, additional protocols, thinking more of this sort of business model. We mentioned Tether a couple times. What is going on with the actual Tether FUD? What is the FUD right now with USDT? I know we see it, it kind of just continues to come back every so often, but what is it recently?
So Adam Cochran did a thread yesterday that he claimed he pulled from on-chain data. This is not like rumors or anything else. Evidently, there have been some executives at Huobi have been detained by the police. Don't know the details on any of that. He's also been talking to a Tron executive. I'm trying to find the exact thread here so I can pull it up. But essentially, he was saying that like Huobi itself doesn't have the money to back the USDT that they are supposed to have on the exchange. Let me see what it says here.
In it, because I saved that. I think it was like 63 million they have, and I think they need to, what is it? Their obligations are
630 million. Yeah, so 10%. And then so in his thread last night, another 21 million USDT left Huobi last night. And evidently Justin Sun has another Tether USDT stablecoin in the Tron ecosystem. I don't know enough about Tron to be able to comment on that, but that also isn't showing the backing it's supposed to have. So I don't know how much this impacts, USDT overall, but it certainly doesn't look good, at least from the perspective of this giant gap that Huobi is supposed to have.
It doesn't quite make sense to me because, isn't Tether supposed to issue the stablecoin themselves? So they're responsible for backing it. If they're issuing it to places where they don't have backing, then they're issuing more Tether than they should. And that seems bizarre to me.
Yeah, well, that's kind of nuanced because what you're assuming is that these exchanges, that the user funds match what's on chain, which is seldom the case. Right. So all of the, this is going to come back to the PayPal stuff in just a moment, because I think one of the reasons that they might be doing it is because it's fairly easy leverage for them. But in a lot of these exchanges, especially the ones that are a little less transparent, they might, have, 1,000 users, each with an average of 10 ETH between them. And so you would expect that there would be, an exchange wallet holding 10,000 ETH, but it doesn't. Right, a lot of the people that trade spot on exchanges are really just trading essentially a promissory token from the exchange, and they'll happily buy and sell tokens from you even when they don't actually have tokens to give to you. So it could be the case in Huobi's situation that their off-chain accounts hold more Tether than their wallets actually hold.
I see that kind of.
It's not a tether. Yeah, it's not a Tether issuance problem. It's a type of double account keeping problem.
A database problem. Yeah, evidently he's also claiming that Binance has been selling off USDT in bulk, and that also Justin Sun is claiming he has this token STUSDT, which is supposedly backed. He claims all the USDT for it is sitting in government bonds, gaining a 4.29% yield. And he claims there are 351,000 stakers, but according to the on-chain data, all of it is either his wallet or Huobi's wallet directly that is staked in that USDT. If Justin Sun's involved, I'd be leery of anything. So.
Brad, just gonna throw it out there. Go ahead, Ceazor.
Yeah, does who runs Huobi? It's not Justin Sun, is
that's his exchange now.
Okay. Yeah, so both is his. So he runs Tron and Huobi. Oh, okay, yeah. That's super sus, right?
Yeah, and there was a communication. This was nuts. There was a communication that went out to Huobi employees, according to Adam Cochran yesterday, that basically said, yes, Justin Sun is taking money out of the exchange for his own personal use, but don't worry about it. Justin has lots of money. So, I guess trying to keep the employees on board, don't worry about it.
Makes me feel so much better.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Exactly.
No, it's just, if anything, it's kind of a counterproductive disguise, right? Because if anything, it just makes you sound more suspicious.
Exactly.
But when did this all start? Because I think Tether, the USDT FUD's been going on for maybe like a week now. Like I started noticing talk of it probably last week, maybe maybe 10 days ago, something of the sort. I think we spoke about it on not this past coffee break, but previous. And I kind of figure, like there's Tether FUD, it kind of dies down, whatever happens with it, but this Huobi stuff just kind of came about maybe a couple days ago, unless I just missed it completely.
It started 7 years ago when Tron did a 20,000% pump, and Justin's been a busy boy ever since. And I think he's been collecting, massive companies left and right that have obligations, and I really think he's just got lost in the sauce. I mean, he bought Poloniex for way too much, or no, I think he got a great deal on Poloniex from Circle, actually. But yeah, buying Huobi, buying all of these exchanges, companies, I just think I think he's a little lost, and he's obviously trying to scramble to cover other obligations. But that's pretty speculative, but I think it's a pretty safe bet at this point.
Is he the next main character?
He's always been this weird lurker main character, and he's just
he's like always on the brink.
His excellency, right? Like that's like he's like a diplomat. Yeah. Everyone thought he's like, hey, whatever he's doing, he must be doing it very well, because he's always sort of been on the back burner. I don't think he's ever really had his moment, his like villain main character moment.
Did you guys see there's a thread where someone pointed out the arbitrage opportunity between USDT and USDC, because USDC doesn't have any redemption fees, but USDT does. And so they speculate that someone's actually cycling USDC out of the system, claiming it back for cash, and then issuing USDT with it ad infinitum.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, it was another chart with it of just the market cap of USDC, and it was like, this could be an explanation of why this is diverging so hard.
Does Tether pay you to issue Tether? Like, I don't know, where's the ARB? Just in the pools?
Well, no, I don't think the ARB is in the pools. The ARB is that if you have Tether and you want to cash out of it, it's more cost efficient to move it into USDC and cash out of that instead.
Yeah, but when he wants to go back in, he's got to take his cash, his actual fiat cash, go to Tether and be like, hey, I want to issue some more Tether.
That part, I haven't looked into it. Like, I just kind of saw the tweet in passing. I was just I was asking this group because I was hoping that someone could connect those dots for me.
It might be the pools, because traditionally, like, the pools are usually USDT heavy, no? So then it wouldn't be a good ARB.
Yeah, it's not clear to me exactly how it should be performed, but it's a lot of people have pointed at it, so I assume there's something compelling behind it, but I haven't looked into it in detail.
Speaking of ARBing with USDT, some are calling for like a big, well, maybe not a big DPEG, right? But with all the FUD and everything else going on right now, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising necessarily if we saw a stable DPEG. What's your guys' take? Do you have one?
The biggest safety net that the entire industry has against DPEGs is Curve. And Curve has been sort of stressed recently. And so it could be that someone is actually like maybe trying to like weaponize the shaken confidence. But yeah, the problem is, like, even if that wasn't the case, the pool on Curve is now like massively top heavy in USDT. And so the market can't actually absorb too much selling pressure at the moment. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's we don't really have that safety net that we're used to.
When the hell was the USDC FUD? That feels like not that long ago, since it depegged down to like 90 cents or something concerning. Feels like we're having this cyclical like freak out every 3 to 6 months with stables.
I think it was in March because that's when the bank runs are like
Yes,
one of the
yeah,
bank
the signature
ended.
bank.
It was delayed though, because it wasn't clear that Circle had funds there until like 2 months later.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been around May, but still not that long ago.
Does anybody know if like Michael took care of all his CRV issues, or is he still levered up big time?
Well, somebody was saying that he made
he's
out.
not really levered up. He's got a big loan, but it's not too bad anymore. The RV position is looking a lot healthier.
And evidently he did a bunch of OTC deals, and people were generous with the pricing on his tokens so that he could cash some of that out. So there was somebody earlier today, I don't know where I saw it, that talking about the fact that he made out on the on it, because now that some of the money's being returned, and hopefully all of it, that he's in a good space, and he was able to sell some off at a price.
You cut out there.
They were just saying that he was able to sell off tokens at a price over the counter that he wouldn't have gotten in the open market because people wanted to preserve the stability of the whole DeFi ecosystem.
Got you. Yeah, I haven't seen an update. I know he paid off a couple of loans, if I'm not mistaken. But speaking of stables, has anybody seen? I've been seeing mixed reviews on what's going on with DAI at the moment. Have you guys been seeing anything on this? It looks like they're bringing in 4% and giving out 8% at the moment. Have you guys seen?
Literally way off my radar. I haven't even heard about it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I don't even pay attention to DAI anymore. It's I ever since like they started all the USDC backing, I just said like, what's the point? And then I stopped looking at it. But maybe because I'm not OG and I don't have Maker tokens. Right?
Yeah, that's normally people that aren't into Maker do not have any Maker tokens. I think they switched like a huge part of their treasury to like T-bond yields, which is whatever, I don't know, 4%, something like that. And yeah, I've seen a little bit of FUD here and there about like, where's this 8% coming? This is like more than 100% of the yield you're bringing in. But it might just be a bootstrapping thing, and it might be coming out of the treasury. But I don't really know enough to say one way or the other.
I did hear that they're moving to something like letting DAI have price discovery, like deconnecting it from the USD peg.
Like a
I'm not sure
a rebasing system, like fees getting built into the value or something.
I'm really not sure. That's a good question. People were talking about it in Paris.
It sounds like he's just gonna they're just not gonna protect the peg as well. Maybe somehow, like maybe I don't know if they're protecting the peg anyway. But like the system should redemptions and liquidations, right? But yeah, I don't know.
The original Maker mechanism, I think, was quite beautiful, and it's just the project has so much inertia now. And over the last year or so, I think that they've been unfairly criticized for like not innovating anymore. And really, their brand, I think, is to have like a reliable stablecoin. And in terms of like DAI is really still the only successful decentralized stablecoin, and that's a huge burden, I think, for a single project to carry. But at the same time, I do also appreciate that sort of to remain relevant, you kind of need to do like more imaginative things. I suspected that what they might do is something that's like a stablecoin that's pegged to a like historical USD price that's corrected for inflation, because we've seen this with Truflation, the Nuon token. And I think Frax as well has an inflation corrected stable. So it could be something like that. I'm not really sure.
We haven't, speaking of Nuon and Trueflation, we haven't really seen flat coins take off. I thought that was going to be kind of a hot narrative this year, but I haven't really, unless I'm just like not looking at the right channels, but I haven't really seen that narrative take off yet.
Well, yeah, and honestly, there's no good reason for it to take off. Like a lot of these things, these stablecoins are issued as debt, right? They are quite literally debt tokens, and the only reason that you really borrow anything is to short it, right? And so a flat coin is actually more difficult to short if it maintains its value despite inflation. It's actually much better, or at least much easier, a much safer bet to short something that you are convinced is going to lose value at the rate that inflation is devaluing it. So flat coins generally is a slightly worse loan product compared to just normal USD pegged stablecoins.
I'm seeing some that are just super excited about it, and then some that are, like here's a comment here. I guess we max borrow the die, earn the savings rate, and break the market again. Or, others that are just calling this outright, scammy. But I guess maybe we can kind of revisit and see what happens with it next week. What I think the Telegram bot narrative hasn't exactly died down. I've seen more that are looking to launch a sort of Telegram bot on their own. Have you guys seen more of this narrative coming out?
Yeah, Thorchain I saw, which was interesting. I don't know if that was the dev team launching or a third party, but I'm keeping my eye on it. All the tokens are dead except for Unibot, though. I don't think I don't think any actually like took off, but maybe it's, I don't know, maybe we're early.
Yeah, possibly. Maybe there are others that were not quite early enough on. Maybe we dig into that a little bit. Go ahead, Patrick. What were we going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say at the end of the day, now that I think the narrative has cooled off, although if you look at usage stats of some of the top bots like Maestro, which doesn't have a token, and then Unibot, still very strong usage. Now that the hype has died down a little, basically bots will actually have to provide something that's a useful product. And I think some of them are. I think that we'll probably see more of these types of front ends for on-chain activity. But yeah, my impression is that the initial hype has cooled off from what it was.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if somebody's actually working on one so that people can individually deploy the bots instead of you being dependent upon somebody else's infrastructure and servers for that. So you could deploy bots yourself instead of utilizing, their interface and their trust.
Well, and I think that's what it comes down to, right? Like we were talking about PayPal and how we hope that it's not like this big centralized entity and they kind of stick to that original ethos, but the Telegram bots aren't necessarily. And this was something that I had asked on the coffee break just recently was, do we see this as an overall net positive or net negative, considering like we all want to see more of the adoption coming through, but we also, security is probably one of the most, the most important aspect of this, right? And so when you are sacrificing security, the possibilities of what could come of this, is this actually like a net positive for us?
I think it's kind of the same problem we have across the board in DeFi is we have this giant weakness of centralized websites being the interface for DeFi, and I don't think this is any different. It's a centralized interface again. So I think if you just kind of say that's a wash, then you're looking at more adoption, more people using it. Okay, I'll take it, right? But at the end of the day, it's one of the bigger problems that we do have is we have these centralized interfaces to everything we're doing. And side note, I'm not going to shill anything, but we're working on a solution.
Okay, well, we won't get
You
into
can
it if
you
you're
can
not
chill,
ready.
Brad. It's alpha hour, man.
I'll just say we're some partners and I are working on a project called Kilroy that will provide a local interface for users to DeFi protocols, takes advantage of composability in DeFi, and allows people to also automate and build their own strategies with a drag and drop interface, and will allow developers to develop their own protocols and deploy strategies in a strategy store, and users will never have to interact with the websites of protocols. They can interact with the protocols through a local interface.
Interesting. Caesar, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Brad. I was going to speak on something else, but yeah, this sounds a little more interesting. Can you keep going?
Well, it's based. So I have a buddy who has had a platform for several years that was originally built for. It was built as an interface for bond traders in Europe to be able to develop their own products on the Ethereum blockchain. It did like $300 million in transactions, but it was kind of a privately held thing. And when he demoed it for me and showed me how they build products, I kept trying to get the guy to deploy this as a product for general usage instead of kind of this. But he was making too much money from people paying him to build it for their own use. So he finally last year agreed to start doing this. So we've been working on it for about a year now to get it deployed. We've got some funding lined up, and we're gonna put it to market. So it'll have automated trading capabilities. It'll have bot capabilities, but it'll also allow developers to kind of pull in composability. So we've been testing with a few different protocols already, and we're hoping to get a bunch more into the system as building blocks for the tool in the next 3 to 6 months, so we can kind of deploy a full product ready to go. But it also has integrations with like 200 other applications, and anything that has an API can be integrated into it. So not only do we kind of see it as a way to get away from the centralized interfaces, but we also see it as a way to make it easier for the rest of the world to integrate with DeFi. So now, instead of having to have somebody that's a Solidity developer on staff to integrate into your fintech app or your institutional trading platform, you'll be able to kind of take these composable components using JavaScript and or just the building blocks within the app itself, and you'll be able to deploy and integrate applications into your existing platforms.
So this isn't for like users to like have like a backup front end for
Oh yeah,
whatever.
no, it's definitely for users. Yeah, users will be able to. So for example, let's say you take let's say you have a strategy that goes through 4 different protocols and has 5 different steps, right? You'll be able to take and drag and drop each of those protocol components, trading, borrowing, lending, whatever, depositing, staking, beefy, and you'll be able to put those blocks together and deploy that as a strategy that's automated. Every time 1,000 USDC hit my wallet, I want you to take this, deposit it here, borrow against it, do whatever in the course of that strategy. And then also when you're in a strategy and the market starts declining, you could be able to set rules and say, if X happens, say decline in price by X%, I want you to unwind this. Or if you see something happening in the market, it'll be a one-click unwind to pull out from those strategies as well. But yeah, this is definitely a user interface. It has a full-blown peer-to-peer swarming capability built into the protocol. So there's chat, there's video, there's all of that together. We're also working on a project right now to build a peer-to-peer perps contract system on top of as a layer on Bitcoin using the peer-to-peer capabilities that's built into the system.
So aren't you trading one centralized front end for another? Or well, in this case, maybe 4 or 5 centralized.
There will be no centralized front end because it'll be installed on your device. So you're interacting directly with protocols on chain. You're not interacting with any centralized server. You won't be interacting with our servers. The apps themselves, the strategies can be deployed as NFTs on any chain. So when people build a strategy, it can be deployed as an NFT. It pulls in the engine that's deployed on your machine, recognizes it, and then will install the strategy and run it for you.
That sounds like pretty cool stuff, man.
I'm very excited to get it going.
Send me the docs when you have it, and I'll take a look at it and probably do a video. Sounds pretty cool, man.
Sounds good.
So you're saying that it brings in the composability, like because I know automated trading is definitely like a narrative right now, right? Like Carbon offers automated trading. Right. So it's almost like this. Well, I won't. Maybe we can talk after.
No, but I mean, it's something that could utilize the composability in Carbon, right? It's something that could be easily deployed into the interface, right? So it just provides users with kind of a standardized interface to different components in the system. So they won't have to kind of like hop from website to website to website to interact with protocols. And then on the other side of it, protocol developers kind of have this, especially if they're US protocol developers, have this issue of standing up a website for their protocol, right? Well, if we're able to gain enough adoption, enough users using Kilroy, then they can deploy a protocol on chain and deploy the interface as an app in the App Store and make it available for other app developers to build on.
It's really interesting. You said cross-chain.
We will leverage some cross-chain protocols in the system. Right now, it's cross-protocol, but that's not, I mean, that's definitely something that'll be a part of it eventually.
I got you. Really fast, not to change the subject, but I'm going to. We have like 15 minutes left. I'm curious. Last call, we were talking about base and, how being early to a chain can have its pros and cons, right? Looking at some more of these smaller chains that are starting to gain traction, have you guys noticed any of these? Are you bridging over to any of them? I noticed Mantle is growing quite a bit.
I can speak a little bit. I'm on vacation. While I'm on vacation, my team at Velocimeter has deployed both to base and Mantle.
Nice.
So it's kind of stressful, but like we run a VE33 solidly, so it's very partner dependent, and that's difficult right now on both of the chains. Like it's really hard to find partners, so we're kind of like deployed and just sitting there and just waiting for partners, and then we'll turn on the emissions and start liquidity mining and all this kind of stuff, right? Like normal DEX stuff, right? But yeah, there's still funds there. There's still activity. There's still trading volume. You can do pretty decent sized swaps with through some of the dexes that are on both chains. The base, like you said, like we talked about last week about the base, how the bald coin scam. I think the meme coin season's over on base, so it might actually start to be legitimate projects now, and the whole try to get someone rugged as quick as possible. That phase may be over, and now I think Sushi Swap's there on, and I think Curve was planning to go, but then there's the whole issue of Curve's got bigger fish to fry right now, right?
Right. Did Balancer deploy there also?
Yeah, I did see Balancer on one of them. I'm pretty sure
Balancer's on base.
Yeah, Mantle doesn't have hardly anything right now. It's all anonymous. As far as I know, anonymous devs and protocols that I've never heard of, except obviously my own, right? But yeah, on base, there's it's growing.
On base right now, man. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's interesting.
Interesting in what sense? Just kind of waiting for more of the sort of partnerships to come?
Yeah, well, we deployed to Phantom right before multi-chain just went under. So when I say interesting, the difference between our deployment to Phantom, our deployment to base is very, very, it's like night and day. Like we had a whole bunch of partners set up. We had partners who provided initial liquidity to the token. They all got their partner NFTs. They all have their committed bribes. And then on base, it's like we had nobody. It was just like they just deployed it because of the hype, right? And I was like, whatever, I'm on vacation, do what you guys want to do, right? And and it just kind of, it is growing, and partners are lurking around. We have a couple, and we're talking with, so people are coming, and that's what I mean by interesting. Like I think it is quite early on base, but it's kind of growing, and people are taking it seriously. But there are people what's his name, Chris Black, who's who warns of chaos and coming, right? And he what he said is that the sequencer is run by a single entity, so Coinbase, right? So there's be careful about this kind of stuff. I don't know how decentralized base is. And like I said, I'm on vacation, so I haven't done a lot of homework, and I just kind of trying to keep up, but not spend hours, in the cyber world, you know, looking at everything.
Actually enjoy your vacation. Take a real vacation.
I'm trying my best. It's pretty hard to get off the old crypto pipe, right? But
Brad, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, number one, looks like you guys are doing pretty well. My headset blew out for a second there. I don't know if you guys heard me, but Velocimeter is already number 10 on Base, which is pretty good. I actually think that Base has a ton of potential. I think they've got that built-in user base. I've noticed more and more in my account, more and more references to their wallet, to the Coinbase wallet. So I think they're kind of positioning themselves now to try to start onboarding people into the Base ecosystem once they probably feel like they have enough going on there. Bleck always has, the sky's always falling with Bleck. That's how he gets attention. So I'm not too concerned about a brand new chain that has some centralized components. I expect that with almost any new chain. I certainly don't want it, and I would love to see them more fully decentralized. But especially with somebody like Coinbase, I really expected it. So anyway, that's all I have on that.
Yeah, like I think like in regards to like other L2s and other rollups and other, just L1s and stuff like that, like the ability, like what Binance did with BNB chain is massive. And how did they do it? It's because it's easy to go from Binance, which is like a first step for new people, into BNB chain, right? So I think Coinbase will play the same cards, right? I would think they would. If they don't, they're just gonna, oh, you're an American, you use Coinbase. Oh, here's a bridge to base chain, and it's like an Ethereum roll up. So it kind of, they even have a better narrative than BNB chain now, as long as they keep like going toward. I'm not saying they're a better chain right now, but they have a better narrative, right?
Yep.
Mark, what were you going to say?
Oh, just that, it's like I'm the last person that wants to come to Chris Black's defense. I'm not necessarily doing that. I think that he does kind of have like a dangerous half knowledge of things, and he's hypersensitive, but it doesn't mean that he's like wrong all the time. And I do think that there are some, like he has raised some pretty legitimate criticisms specifically about things like centralized sequences. And I haven't really looked into it, but it wouldn't surprise me if Base has that issue. But I don't think that should make anyone feel like especially nervous. Most of the layer twos that people are using are still reliant on centralized sequences. So like it's probably true. And yeah, like it's a problem and probably something that should be worked on, but I don't think that it's severe enough that it should give anyone like a reason to panic. Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, like I only brought him up because like usually when I comment on the things he says on Twitter, it's usually in support of what he says. Like he's not fudding. It is FUD, but it's
exactly.
He's just trying to make people understand that they need to understand what they're doing, and dig a little deeper. Don't just believe stuff. But like like Coinbase, I would think is a little bit more dependable than like an anonymous multi-sig. You know what I mean? Like in the sense,
exactly.
Like the government's not gonna. They're liable. They're legally liable for some of the stuff that they would end up doing in some senses. So I would say, like, I'm not trying to say, listen to this guy, don't go to Base, because by all means, I have a protocol there. Come and stick some tokens in there if you want, right? But like, just beware. Just do a little due diligence and stuff like that. Like, make sure you know how the bridges work and which bridges you're going to get if you want to leave. If you want to get back to Ethereum, how are you going to do it? Plan out your escape route, so to speak, right?
Patrick, go ahead.
Does anyone know if it's possible to get off of Base right now?
I think
I think that's not until mid-month.
Oh, really?
I've done it many times, man. There's bridges, like Axelar. Yeah, Axelar bridge works completely. Orbiter works Yeah. There's the secondary bridges. They get paid money. They have fees, right? So
Sure.
they're pretty quick to spin up their bridges and just deploy their contracts. But massive liquidity, I can't speak. Like if you want to move like $3 million off chain, I'm not. I don't know, right? But a couple $1,000, it's easy.
That's good.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the sequencer thing real quick. I mean, I think I like Chris Black. I'm a fan of his in general, but I think the thing is there's a lot of reasons why people might want to use a new chain that don't necessarily rely on or even really benefit that much from having a decentralized sequencer, right? If someone's bridging there to speculate on a meme coin, to buy a low cap or micro cap yield farm, then their primary risk is that the token goes to zero, right? Or that the micro cap farm rugs. Their risk is not that Coinbase decides to rug their own chain.
Yeah, like the centralized sequencer, I think it only becomes a problem if the chain becomes really important, right? And like, I'm not saying that Base won't be really important, but like right now, it's just such a low priority. I think that it's kind of it's a kind of a moot point at this stage in its development.
Exactly. Yeah. If a substantial portion of Ethereum activity is taking place on the chain, then it's a different situation because then it becomes systematic.
And just
do we think that? Oh, go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I love the message of decentralization of Chris Black. I just think he's a sensationalist. And I think half of the reason he does his fear and dread stuff is to get more clicks and attention. And that is what bothers me. If he was less sensationalized about it and a little more rational and in how he approached it, I wouldn't have a problem with him. But, so.
Yeah, he's like contrarian, and that's like his brand. And sometimes he gets carried away. But what I was going to ask is, like, do we think this is going to help Coinbase's brand? Like, did the BNB chain help Binance's brand? Like, if these rugs continue to happen on Base chain, like, at what point does this start to just erode Coinbase's, I would say, pretty pristine, brand? They've spent a lot of money after the FTX debacle, advertising the hell out of their trustworthiness, their Fortune 500 company. They're completely transparent. And then it seems like is there this scenario where they are now like running a pump and dump blockchain?
Not even help their brand, but at what point does it start to hurt it?
I think that's the point that Tyler was driving at when he brought up the BSC. And yeah, it's absolutely something worth considering. I think early on in BSC's development, I remember the hype that came with it, and it was really exciting. Binance had so many users, and for all of the arguments that we're making for Base being a likely success in the future, they feel familiar to me, precisely because of BSC. And I remember, like, after the hype kind of died down, and I don't think that Base has any hype yet, but I think that it will. I remember that after the sort of party is over and you're kind of looking around at the mess everyone has made, it doesn't just affect the chain badly, but absolutely the people that deployed it. And yeah, I'm hoping that there's now sort of enough history that Coinbase can kind of pay attention. I don't want to say police their own chain, because clearly that's not something that the industry or its inhabitants are interested in. But I do hope that they provide some sort of guiding influence, maybe prop up the right projects, and try and find the right people to sort of lead development in that ecosystem, and hopefully establish something that's actually respectable. Because I think it's very, very easy for these quick pump and dumps or rug programs, or even sort of criminal enterprises to sort of take hold. It takes active management to make a blockchain healthy, and remains to be seen if they take that responsibility seriously.
I was just, for the record, just using BSC as like an example, as like the best one-to-one I could come up with. And there's been plenty of projects and positive developments that have happened. Like GMX was like Gambit back in the day, and Pancake Swap, I think, has done some development and added value. So I just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there.
Really?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was going to let Will. Go ahead. If you want to add something, then we'll turn it over to Will and Ceazor.
I think there's going to be two base chains. I think, and I don't mean that literally, I think there will be the Coinbase interface to base, which is kind of the, hey, these are the ones we think are safe to play in. And then the Wild West, where the rest of DeFi comes in and does whatever we do on the back end. But I think that my expectation is that Coinbase's plan is to really control the interaction and interface of users coming in that are not experienced DeFi people, and guide them into protocols and projects via their interface on their main exchange and their wallet, into things that they deem as kind of the safe world. Of course, rug pulls and everything else will still cause them problems, and the press will still glom onto that stuff. But that's kind of how I think they're going to play this with the users they have at Coinbase.
Go ahead, Will.
I like that vision.
To tag on to what Mark was saying, Coinbase, like Brian Armstrong's looking 10 years out. This isn't he's a very bright guy, and so this is just another step of running a huge company like this. And I think he's right directionally, and it understood well that this is what the environment is going to look like. So I don't think this is a surprise to most internally, is my suspicion, and I think it's a great move for if you're running Coinbase. Like, I think it's a great way to expand your market, to get customers on both sides of the fence, and especially if you're having this fight on the regulatory side, like you can set yourself up as a trusted venture into DeFi if you want to, or you could stay within their ecosystem, but they're going to benefit both ways. It's really a great like long-term play. So I'm with Mark though. Like, if as you get going on this venture, in this regulatory environment and everything they're facing, like there's probably going to be some curation that has to happen. They'll find the right balance, and because everyone can choose to leave, you don't have to be there. And so if they decide, well, we're going to curate, then you'll choose your customers, which is good for them and good for everybody. I think it's a win-win. It's just like, what's your time preference? And I think they're looking 10 years out, where we may be saying, the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'll throw in that one of my long-term theses about the market is that more and more activity moves from centralized exchanges to on-chain. And even if Coinbase thinks that that's a possibility, it would make sense that they would hedge their centralized exchange by also having a interface for their users to stay within the Coinbase ecosystem but do things directly on-chain.
There's just to jump on with Mark's idea there about, or parallel between Binance and Base here. The BNB chain, or BSC chain, whatever you want to call it, it started at the beginning of the bull run, right? It was like the first layer to like kind of come out and give like super cheap, like there was maybe the Polygon was around, Matic was around, but it was the first one that really exploded and started having like massive amounts of DeFi innovation, right? A lot of forks, a ton of forks, but also, builders just throwing stuff out there quickly because it didn't cost $300 to deploy a contract, right? So it had that huge ability to just snowball and grow and boost. And then it had the BNB, the Binance, easeability to get into it from Binance and stuff like that. And then it had, CZ doing all these hackathons and all that kind of stuff. So it had a lot. And I feel like CZ's a little bit more explorative, a little bit more risk-taking than maybe Brian is. So it might not have that ability to snowball so big and so quick as Binance did. But one of the things that Base does have that Binance doesn't is that they're using Ethereum as gas instead of BNB. And I think that makes a huge difference, especially for like the regulatory consideration. Like it's just Ethereum. Like it's a roll up of Ethereum. It's not, there's no base coin that he sold a whole bunch to or has a big bag of or can mint out of thin air and stuff like that. So I think that makes a huge difference.
That's a really great point. Actually, Ceazor, we are at the hour. Any of our panelists have anything they want to add to it? Go ahead, Brad.
Oh no, I'm good. I will say I had queued up a really cool tool I've been using lately. Infura bought this company called HAL. It's a great way to get it when we were talking about Telegram. It's a great way to get alerts in Telegram about yields across multiple chains. HAL.xyz.
HAL is actually what Carbon uses at the moment for all of you.
Nice.
Yeah, for all of your on-chain trading strategies. If anybody creates a trading strategy, whether it's the recurring or the disposable, you can opt in to receive notifications from HAL whenever your strategy is being traded against, so there's any activity with it. Yeah, so we're familiar with HAL. We had them on, or they were on V3 also for notifications. I don't know if it was V2.1. I don't recall. Will, go ahead.
This is somewhat unrelated, but I just trust everyone's judgment here. I'm experimenting with new wallets. Has anybody tried Rabby and enjoyed it? Am I making a mistake here?
No, I've been using it for over a year, and I love
It's
it.
awesome.
It's fantastic.
It's really
Okay,
cool.
great. Because I
It's a
really enjoy it. I
superior
don't want it to be
interface.
bad.
No,
I
it's
can't
it's
even
so much
stand
better than
MetaMask
anything.
anymore. I
Awesome.
can't even stand MetaMask anymore. Like on
I
vacation,
can't either, man.
it's hell.
Yeah,
It's hell.
MetaMask is in trouble, I think.
Yeah, that because
Awesome. I'm
with
glad to hear that. Because I've been playing with it all weekend. I'm like, this is really nice.
yeah
So
with
that's good to
Rabby, you
hear.
get all of their data from their other property, and it's just fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, especially if you're a DJ and multi-chain, it's so good, man. It's so good. It works so easy. Like when you're just jumping through websites that are all like different protocols on different chains, it just knows where you are. It's so good. It's so good. Like I can explain it a lot deeper than that, but the user experience is great on Rabby, and the messaging and all the like warnings and stuff like that. It's good stuff.
This is the new wallet. I think, Tyler, you had mentioned this previously.
Yeah, it's really it's phenomenal. I echo what everyone said here.
Something to look into for sure. Okay, well, with that, I think we'll call it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you to all of the listeners. We'll be back next Monday, same time, 5 p.m. UTC. Anything, don't hesitate to DM me. I did post something up there about Carbon DeFi. If you have any questions about it, you can DM me those also. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow for Trading Crypto with Crypto Corio and Keith Allen from Material Indicators. Mark, you'll be joining us again, and Tyler, you'll be with us. So I look forward to speaking with you guys again tomorrow. And yeah, the reminders are on my feed, and you can add it straight to your calendar on link 3.